I suppose it's being able to use my imagination. I mean, that is the freest you can ever be, I think. You can travel, make people up, create scenarios for them, actions for them to partake in. I mean, it's just like my definition of freedom, sort of what you're able to do with your writing. So, yes, I think that's what I would say was... I mean, one pleasure could be when you do that last full stop in the book, but that's not really true. I'm usually a bit sad when I get to the end. The actual process is really enjoyable. Yes, I mean, it's sometimes hard work, and I don't wait until I'm feeling inspired. I sit down, you know, for a certain number of hours, however many I might have in one particular working day, and I make myself stay there. I don't sort of say, oh, I'm not really feeling like it, I'll go out shopping. I don't do that. But even if you write 3 or 4 sentences in a day that you're really happy with, you know, sometimes that can be enough. And I always review what I've written one day on the next day, and it's amazing how literally it's like sleeping on it. You go back to what you've written and you're much more critical. You know, is this good enough to stay on the page? And I quite enjoy that as well, just deleting things. That can be almost as satisfying as writing something. Well, the novels that I've written to date have got historical backgrounds. So I do a lot of research into the real events, but all the characters in my books are completely out of my imagination. Sometimes they're based on somebody I might see, let's say in a cafe, either in Spain or Greece, which is where I've written my work. You know, that's been the sort of backdrop to date. And I might see a face, or maybe 2 faces, a couple, and they can become sort of main protagonists in my stories, but I won't speak to them. They won't. I won't break down that sort of barrier between me and them. And, you know, actually, perhaps I'd be disappointed in their real stories, but I usually have an idea, perhaps of a face, and it's quite often a real face that's a sparking point for a character. Gosh, I wish I really had one, because a lot of my work is sort of even more, from as time goes on, slightly based outside this country. I travel a lot in Greece, so I couldn't say that for 50 weeks of the year I sit down at a particular desk and write for a certain number of hours a day, because I'm often travelling abroad. So oddly, my real routines are nothing to do with writing. I always get up and I have to do some exercise, and then I have a cup of coffee. And when I'm having that coffee, that's when I start writing. So it sounds odd, but the actual day-to-day sitting down at my laptop might be 1 hour, it might be 8 hours. So that doesn't have any fixed pattern. Yes, I do, because as I say, I'm very strict about not taking any historical characters and sort of imagining what they thought or what they did. My sort of main characters are usually the ordinary people who are on the receiving end of the decisions made by politicians or, you know, the government of whatever day of the day. So yes, there is quite a clear line for me between where and that's in a way the fun bit is the imaginary bit. I mean, I enjoy the research enormously because I didn't ever study history, so I'm coming to, you know, things like the Spanish Civil War or the Greek Civil War for the first time, and it's amazing to read. You know, to sit in a library. I do a lot of my work in the London Library for my research, and it's very exciting to read history, you know, when I haven't been doing it all my life. But then the next level of excitement is the actual sort of creating these what did the people feel like who experienced these events, part of the book. Always I return to Ian McEwan. I will queue up outside a bookshop when a novel of his is coming. You know, the ink is still wet when I read it. Not for comfort really or inspiration, but just to remind myself how good writing can be. I always read his books, and for me they're quite faultless, and I think one can get better and better as a writer. And you know, I'm sure most writers hope that they improve with each book. So I will never write like Ian McEwan. I would never sort of copy his style, but somehow having someone you really admire is always a good kind of target in a sense.